Pencil Kings, 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 Pencil Kings.
I think the best thing to do is to just make sure A, you have a cushion, and B, you can then follow up and rebound.
Time once again for the Pencil Kings podcast, and today we are talking with I always screw these up. Talking with the one and only Derek Rodenbeck.
Good morning.
And so just to fill everybody in, I had a chance to go to the States because I'm based in Canada these days and do a little road trip. So I went to visit the art school that I talked about a few episodes ago. And then I realized, hey, Philadelphia is right nearby, and that's where Derek is. So I hopped on the train, which I'm always excited to take new forms of transportation. Hopped on the train. It was really easy to get to Philadelphia, and then took an Uber to Derek's place. He showed up with his dog, which is so enormous. It's like if you've seen a St. Bernard, and I use a St. Bernard because that's the huge dog that I often see.
Yeah.
His dog is like equivalent size of a Saint Bernard, but just it looks cool. It looks smarter than a Saint Bernard. It's like a Saint Bernard is the dog that you maybe want sitting by you by the fire, but Derek's dog is the one that you want hunting with you in the forest.
Yeah,
it would still be a good fire dog. Don't get me wrong, but it's more. It looks. I don't know. It has more forest instincts than the Saint Bernard. Is like. I don't know. Just its IQ is a little lower or something.
He's known as when we lived in Manayunk, it was the Manayunk direwolf. Now he's the Philly direwolf. So
direwolf, yes, that's exactly what you have.
Yeah.
You have a direwolf. Okay, so yeah, we met up and it was great. And I think it's important to put this out there. It's something that I've done throughout my entire career is trying to meet people in the real world. It started off with doing an internship, and I grew up in a little village. I had to drive an hour away to get to the metropolis of Brandon, Manitoba, which I think has 50,000 people. But there was a guy there who did 3D, and I found him on a MechWarrior gaming board.
That's awesome.
And I was like, hey, can I intern with you? Or can I apprentice with you? And I don't know if this would work. I feel like he asked for no credentials from my school, nothing. If you just wanted to intern under somebody and say like, hey, could I job shadow you for a day? And you emailed 10 people, I bet 3 of them at least would email you back.
Oh, yeah.
If somebody tries this, please email me and let me know. My email, somebody called me out on this as well, is mitch@pencilkings.com. If you try out one of my crazy schemes or one of my guests' crazy schemes, please email me so I can call it out on the podcast. Somebody told me recently that I wasn't sending my email address out on the podcast, so it's mitch@pencilkings.com. But yeah, it was awesome meeting you, Derek. It was awesome seeing the dogs and just getting to hang out. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was great. It's funny when you talk to somebody for so long and you see them on a screen. It's always different, when you're able to actually make that physical, just like, hey, hi, how are you connection. And I feel like it kind of completes the process of like your friendship that you've built. But I thought it was awesome, man. It was great to see you.
Likewise. And so one of the things and it's always interesting when you meet people face to face. Yeah, it's different. Like the Google Hangout or Skype, whatever, it loses something. Like in my mind, Derek, you were about 7 feet tall.
No, I'm not. I wish.
I think it's because the bodybuilding and all that stuff is like, dude, this guy's like Captain America. He's got the giant dog. And maybe it was your dog was so big too that it just like throws my sense of scale for the world off. But yeah, it's interesting to see, and if you as a listener you've never done this before and it's your first time, don't be freaked out. Just expect that people are going to look different in person than they do online. Same with if I'm sure if you met a celebrity and you're used to looking at all their photoshopped, glamored images, and then you were to meet whoever it is, Mel Gibson in person, you'd be like, whoa, he's different.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, of course. This perception is just not reality.
Yeah, I exactly agree with you with that. There's so many instances where I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of people online, and every time you do meet them, you're just like thrown off by a little quirk or something that you visualize them in some way. It's kind of like a dream when you dream or think about something, and like you haven't been somewhere before but you really want to go, and then you get there and it's different. So I would definitely, there's just like character in it.
The other really big thing I think that we can mention here, just encouraging people to go and meet their online friends in the real world, or try to go to a convention and meet up with people if they're going, is that the reason you're going to meet in person is because you have some connection with this person. So they're like you in some way, and you both like each other. Some kind of a relationship forming there, like some kind of friendship. But the added bonus here is that when you go, like when I went to Philadelphia to visit Derek, I met a lot of Derek's friends. Now, does that mean I'll have close relationships with his friends? Who knows? But it's opened a door to so many more relationships to people who are like Derek. So there's a good chance that I will like those people as well. And this is the kind of thing that just kind of snowballs. And if you're looking to build some kind of build your network and build your peers of people who are working on the same kind of projects, this is one of the ways to do it, and one of the most powerful ways, because meeting in person is so much more powerful than meeting online. So just going to throw that out there. And any last words before we get into the update, the Derek update that I'm very excited to hear about?
Yeah, I mean, if you have built a relationship with somebody and you've been able to like do what we've done, or do something equivalent to that, I definitely encourage that. Go meet them, because exactly what you said, you get to meet their friends, and not only that, you get to go somewhere you probably haven't been before, and they get to show you around. They get to play a little tour guide, and you get to learn some stuff too. So it exposes you to, who knows, different cultures and just different things where you wouldn't necessarily be able to find things that are like little secrets nestled within a city or in a countryside. So definitely go check it out.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give props to Philadelphia. The Flyers were always my favorite team when I was a kid, I think because they had Lindros, and I was a big Lindros fan. But the city really impressed me. I loved that we could walk around downtown. There's lots of cool restaurants and bars and just people out, and it just felt very alive. It wasn't, I can't remember, was it warm at that time?
It was like off and on. I think it was cool the day you came, and then like the next day it was like 90. Yeah,
just on the cusp a little bit. But yeah, people were still out. Lots of what were there? Lots of engagement parties or bridesmaids parties or whatever. I felt like there's a lot of girls walking around with the crazy boas and feathers and stuff, having a good time. So yeah, Philadelphia it looks like an amazing place, and I look forward to coming back to visit.
Hey, you're welcome anytime.
All right, let's change gears here and talk about where things are at right now. So to catch the listeners. To catch you guys up, the last time we talked with Derek, we were talking about focus and how he was kind of compartmentalizing things so that he could just focus on what was important. He had a lot of balls up in the air, a lot of things that he was working on, but realized that even though some of those things he was working on were bringing in a lot of money, they weren't the right long-term goals, so he was willing to give them up to focus on his longer-term creative goals. And then the time before that, we were talking about, what was the time before that? Oh, the time before that was how Derek had just started getting back into doing comics full time because he was at the start of this creative job, and he's shaken off the rust a little bit. Like he hadn't stopped drawing, but he also wasn't drawing for 8 or 10 hours, or I'm not sure what your schedule is, but it was more intense than usual. And just talking about how it took a little bit of time to shake off the rust, which I think we all know that the art skills, they do come back, and they come back pretty quickly, but you can be rusty if you haven't been doing it for a while. So he's been focusing on this job, and now what's going on?
Yeah, a lot of cool things are actually happening right now, but within the midst of those cool things, one of the jobs that I was working on has seemed to kind of come to a close momentarily. It could be permanently, or it could be just briefly, but at the end of the day, the game that I was working on, the card game, has kind of slowed down, and now had to face some pretty interesting obstacles as far as like finances go, because that was a major contributor to my finances. So that's probably like the number one big thing as far as my jobs with stabilization goes. But the comic books are almost done, so that's exciting.
And comic books are still full steam ahead?
Yeah. The one major one that I'm doing is it's getting close. So I'm diving into inking right now, and I was able to actually pick up a freelance cover gig. So I was up very late last night working on that. But yeah, that's their full steam.
Okay, I'm gonna just put myself out on a limb here as a noob and ask you to explain, what does a freelance cover gig actually mean? Because I don't come from the world of comic books, although I know that there's a lot of people listening who love comic books and that's what they aspire to do. So here's what I hear in my mind, and I want to have the clarification for myself as well as for everybody else. So when I hear it in the future, I know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
So freelance cover artist. So somebody just came out of the blue and was like, "Hey, Derek, I saw the work you're doing on Instagram and Facebook. It looks amazing. We got to turn this cover around really quick. Are you available?" We'll just say it's for Doctor Strange. And what we need is pencils and inks. We have a colorist, and we need it delivered by, in the next 5 days.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly essentially it. Somebody came to me and was like, I had actually worked with them previously, and they ended up, I think, contacting me again because I had an interview in the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is the newspaper here, and it got a really big response online when I posted a link, and I think it kind of like made them remember me. And they're like, "Hey, Derek, just wondering if you wanted to do a variant cover for us. Job pays X amount of dollars, and no real huge tight deadline, but obviously sooner than later." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll get it done for you in 4 days," because given that the situation where my current job ended up not necessarily paying me, it left a little bit of a void there. So I was ready to crank something out. But yeah, a freelance cover gig is basically a freelance job for a comic book cover or book cover, and gig obviously job.
Gotcha. Thanks for breaking that down so that I'm smarter and hopefully somebody else is more clear. Now, actually, the follow-up question, is it common to get those gigs? Because I've heard or I've read people's profiles and seen that some people are primarily cover artists. I'm guessing some people never do cover art, but the way that I seem to read it was that cover art was more prestigious than the interior book art or the panels. I'm not sure the exact terminology. Mm-hmm. And it often pays way better than doing a page inside the book, which I guess makes sense because the cover is selling the book. Right. I feel like that's the probably, I'm sure people could argue this, that the story is more important or whatever, but yeah. The story doesn't get read unless somebody picks that book up for the first time. And so we could argue that the cover is the most important part.
You know what, from working actually back in the day in a comic book store, and then obviously going to the Kubert School as well and studying comics, and I got the opportunity to have the best of both worlds. So I saw the creation side, but I also saw the retail side, and there's nothing like it when you get to look at a wall of comics and dude, it's just so many covers. Yeah, I mean, there's so many books, and you have to really ask yourself, okay, what is this going to do to make somebody, one, pick it up, two, how will this stand out, and why would I pick this up, and why is this interesting? So for me personally, the psychology of why somebody does something when they have so many options, which is also goes back to things online as well. We're very inundated with so many options in our society. That's always captivated my interest. So when I have an opportunity to do a cover, then that's when I'm like, yes, I get to kind of play with this. It's more of an opportunity to test if I can do that. So it's almost like a personal challenge. Will this make somebody want to pick this up and read this book? And I agree with you where you say that the cover is one of the most important parts of the comic, because yes, it's gotta make that sale. It's gotta make it so people pick up that book. But at the end of the day, the cover, I think as the story develops and evolves and it builds that following, it becomes a lot less important, whereas the story is going to be the driving factor that keeps the readers,
Right.
tagging along.
Yep, the old 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Get them with the cover, hook them with the story. Okay, so let's get back to the update here.
Yeah.
So the job, it just kind of went away. I had a really bad experience where I was forced to close down an art studio that I had started because of a client just all of a sudden saying, the money is gone. We didn't make our deadline.
It happens.
And there's because they had to hit a milestone, a production milestone, and then more money would be released.
Right.
But they didn't hit it, and then they didn't hit it.
Yeah.
And they didn't hit it, and we, because we had been, nice guys, these Canadians are too nice. We let this guy just go, and I'm just bad at business, and so this guy his account just kept going and going and going until it was such a big debt that we had to close. Had to make a tough decision to close our company.
Right.
I think now in hindsight it was all for the best, but I feel like this story is going to keep happening to people all the time. There's going to be a client who, for whatever reason, even though they might have the best intentions in the world and be good people at the end of the day, they're just, something is going to happen and you're the one who's going to have to deal with it.
Exactly. And I think that's reminiscent of before when I was working in the bar and struggling, and it's still like a struggle. It's not like the easy times right now, but you almost have to expect that things aren't going to sustain forever. It's just, I don't think we live in a world like that anymore until you obviously build like a system that works very well for you. That's a business or whatever, and you are able to build a giant financial cushion. But if you don't have that, I think the number one thing is to build a small cushion just in case of something like this happening. It was a little expected on my end, but at the end of the day, it wasn't something I thought would happen now, but it did happen. So yeah, I think the best thing to do is to just make sure A, you have a cushion, and B, you can then follow up and rebound. And the book actually I'll recommend here is Who Moved My Cheese, and my friend actually gave that to me. It was probably like 3 months ago, which was pretty funny because leading up to it, I just kind of saw like things deteriorating, and the book's basically about two mice and two like really tiny people. I guess they're like the size of mice, and they're all in this maze. And the maze has like big old, like, I guess you would call them like caches of cheese, but you had to find them. And basically the mice would always go out and keep finding new cheese, whereas the people found like this huge cache, and they ended up like living there. And eventually one day, all the cheese was gone. And then the mice were gone too, because they had been going out the whole time and they found new cheese. And then they were kind of stuck there like, oh no, we don't have any wealth anymore. So whether your cheese is like where you live or a job or whatever that is you might be, you have to be willing and ready to jump back into the maze of life and continue to find that cheese. So quick Cliff Notes version for you there.
Yeah, and I really like this, and I've started to talk to people about it recently because I feel that it's there's just skills. So many people are focused on how do I draw better figures, or how do I draw better X, or how do I connect with more people. But there's simple life skills too that you still need. You don't have to master them per se, but you can do simple things that will really help you out. And one of those things is saving your money.
Right.
And the thing that I hear is, oh, well, I don't have enough money to save. And I totally hear you.
It's so hard.
I've been like so close to broke so many times this year. And, I'm sure things are going to get better, but we're investing, we're making Pencil Kings better. And so it sort of just is what it is. I'm investing everything back in the business, but I was doing something dumb when I was doing that. I was putting everything into Pencil Kings, but I wasn't putting anything into myself.
Right.
And so what I changed with that is that now I take a little bit of money each month and that goes into a savings account and actually an investment account.
Oh, awesome.
And when I tell people about this, like, I don't have any money, I'm scared to do it. It's like, okay, I hear you. If you're scared to do it, fine. You can still put your money into a savings account.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to that point where you see this money start building up, you're going to be like, dang, this money's useless here in this bank account that's making no interest. I want to do something about it. That'll be the time when you realize that, you'll find the right teacher who can show you how to invest without it being scary.
Exactly.
But if you're not there yet, just start saving. And if you say, oh, I don't have enough money to save, I'm literally broke at the end of each month. It's like, I feel you, I hear you. $20.
Yeah.
Start with $20. You'll start to see this money pile up, and it'll become like this little shiny rock that you're polishing. And every month it gets a little bit more shiny, and you feel proud. I feel proud of the savings I have. It's pennies compared to what other people, my friends who are, they've been in their careers for 10 years, something safe and stable.
Right.
If they saw my investment thing, they would just laugh. But it's not for them. It's for me. And for me, this little tiny nugget it's growing each month, and it's something that I'm proud of. And I know if this house of cards falls down, that there will be something there for me at the end that I've been slowly building. Yeah. And so I encourage anyone who's listening, if you're not saving, if you don't have investments, go talk to your bank, ask them, how can I save $20 a month into a separate account that I can't touch? They might even laugh at you. No, they won't. They won't laugh at you. In the future, you will laugh at yourself that you started with only $20, because once you realize the power of this, you'll be like, man, I'm putting as much money away as I can. But you got to develop that muscle slowly. And but yeah, having that nest egg, or that emergency fund, is so important. And that's something that you're already doing, right, Derek? Like you got the memo a while back, and you were putting some money away, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was when I was homeless for a couple months, and I'm not going to say I was perfect, man. Like it's been a struggle still. Like even with the job that I had paying me for a year full time, I was like struggling to get back out of all those situations. And then, it's not easy. So I can sympathize with anybody that's like, God damn it, I don't have enough money. Like it's painful sometimes, because you're just like, you're looking at yourself, and it can also like make you like your self-worth go down. And that's something I had to like deal with as well too, because like you don't feel like you're contributing enough, or you're like worth enough to like make enough or whatever. But you're like, what's wrong with me? But at the end of the day, like you said, $20, $10, 10 cents. Just something, and eventually it will build to be enough to where you're like, okay, you can take a deep breath. You don't have nothing, and at the end of the day, you can at least like get something to eat, or you're not like living off a credit card or something like that.
And you know what? I'll say this as well, is that there's times when you're not making very much. You can barely make ends meet. But then there's times when you're making a lot and you still can't make ends meet. And I've seen examples of this as well, where there's so much money flowing through these people's fingers. And I'd been in that situation, I guess, sort of.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like, okay, well, if let's say you're making like $10,000 a month, and at the end of the month you're still broke, still force yourself to save something.
Yeah.
Start small. And I promise you, it won't be nearly as painful as you think it is. And it's something that after, like 3 or 4 months into it, because that's about where I'm at now, it's like I've got my groove on. I feel like I could just kind of strut down the street and be like, I got a tiny little investment, But that's where it starts. It has to start somewhere.
Well, you have to have a paradigm shift. You have to go from a scarcity mindset to like a prosperous mindset, and that's really all it is. And it's easier said than done, but you have to really like look at situations where you can prosper from an opportunity. You can look through for a result within the obstacle, and really like kind of dig your way through that. Whereas if you have a scarcity mindset, it's very easy to like victimize yourself, and that can actually really like your inner voice, man, like that can bring you down. That can talk you and demotivate you out of doing anything. And it's just like it can become a downward spiral. So definitely move towards a more prosperous mindset.
Okay, so this job kind of, things didn't pan out as they should or as you wanted them to, but you're rolling with it, and this is what I'm actually most excited to talk about on this episode. It took us a while to get here,
it did.
but tell us what you're doing, because I'm gonna say you're crazy, and I'll explain why I'm saying that Derek's crazy, but just go for it.
Okay.
And then we can have a little chat.
Yeah, so my girlfriend and I decided that we are going to sublet our place, which we did. We found a renter, and he's going to rent it for about 4 months. And we are driving across country. We're going to live in San Francisco, California, for about a month. And she's going to be doing yoga training out there. I'm probably going to finish up last bit of my freelance work and then just kind of start doing some personal stuff. And for the next 3 months after that, we're going to continue to drive around the country, just kind of hang out in nature and write a book and do like video content about it.
I'm just taking a pause here. Because the way that you say it, we're going to hang out in nature, I picture you in this old van. You guys are like clothes, or where we're going, we don't need clothes. You know, like that old Back to the Future, we don't need roads. I don't know if that's how it's going to be, but I just want to explain why I say it's crazy, because most people aren't doing this. I'm sure there are people who are doing it, but it's not the normal track, right? And people have told me that I was crazy for things that I had done, going into video games, starting a game studio in China. It's like, you're crazy. Why would you ever? But it leads to so many cool things. But you don't know where it's going to lead, I think, and that's part of what's amazing about it.
Yeah, it's really exciting, man. Like, I think it's just been so intense as far as go, and there's been like so many shifts and so many versions of myself that I've been trying to understand and evolve, and there's just all this self-development and growing professionally and what I've been doing art-wise. And again, like 2 months back, we were initially just going to leave for a month. And then as this idea kind of grew, we just decided, hey, like, let's live life. I mean, we're already out there and we have a car out there. Let's just do this. And I think part of this experience is to show people that you can kind of just drop what you're doing, even if you don't have very much. And if you're not exactly 100% happy with what's going on, you can pursue something. And life is about living, not waiting to be lived. So the book is going to be called Her Venture, His Venture. I think right now it could change. But yeah, and it's basically just going to be based on our own perspectives, and we'll bring the book together at the end.
Okay. Because I know you want to talk to people who are, maybe thinking about this and show them that it's possible. Let's start right now. I'm going to play devil's advocate, and you can just crush my objections, okay?
That's fine.
So you're saying you're going to go on the road and just live life, which I think is awesome. I think that's what we all want. We're browsing on Facebook, and we see people living their life while we're sitting at a bus stop swiping up on our phone. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, what are the things that you struggle to give up? Or is it just so easy for you because you don't have, you had this job that just fell through. You have some other stuff that is going on. Your girlfriend's going to school. But is it so easy for you? Or what were the hard decisions that you had to say, like, you know what? I could see how this would be a really hard decision. But because I'm in the mindset of just letting go and wanting to and putting a higher priority on living life and having this experience, that it wasn't actually that hard to let go of my ex, whatever ex is. I don't know. It could be your friends. I think there's a lot of things.
I guess two things here. One, I'm very, very fortunate that I found somebody that we really support each other. And I think it might have been a little bit more difficult for her initially because, she's a lawyer and she left her job, and now she's doing like remote work while we're doing this thing. But she left her full-time job to kind of pursue this. So like I'm always inspired by her actions. Like to me that I was just like, whoa, like that's freaking awesome. And that's why you love someone. Their actions and the things they do, and those things really bring out the best in you. And two, for me, I was in the military for 8 years. I've lived out of bags. I've slept on the dirt. It doesn't bother me. I can get up and go whenever. I'll have my girlfriend and my two dogs and some video equipment and some stuff to draw and paint with, and it's all just gonna be in this book. And if people read it, they read it. If they don't, they don't. I don't care. It's more for me and for her. It's just about, again, living life. And it's been this like just go 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 mentality of like, oh, I've built this business, or oh, I've worked on this project, and now I need me time.
I like that. I really like what you just said, that it's really for you and her. There's gonna be a byproduct of it, of putting out a book, but like, because when you started telling me about this, you're telling me how you want to show other people and talk to other people, but really it's just for you and her. It doesn't matter if nobody reads it.
Yeah,
it's more for you. You want us to take a break and see what happens. Oh man, I think it's so cool. It brings to. Have you seen the movie Into the Wild?
No, I haven't. I actually haven't.
Oh, well, I'm going to give a plug for this book for a guy who he grew up, I believe it's a book as well as a movie. I'm sure a lot of people saw it, but I identified with it. Somebody who grew up and it just felt like you didn't quite fit in with the mold of go, 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 consume, consume, consume.
That's how I feel.
And he really went, he went extreme with it. But it kind of shows you what's possible, and some of the experiences that you can have when that there are other paths. It doesn't have to just be the one that's currently laid out in front of you. I've often said to people that like, how can you take these risks? How can you follow this kind of career path and do these creative things? And I've always said that I love my parents, and I saw what they were doing with their jobs and the family and everything, and I just felt like I knew what that story was, and I wanted to have a different story for myself.
Yes.
And so it made it easy to just choose a different path. And same with when I was in high school or university, and I looked around at the kids around me, and I said, like, okay, well, what are they doing? What's a different path, or what's a unique path? And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm so unique or that you're so unique taking time off, because you'll meet lots of other people and you're like, holy, wow, I thought I was really alone in this. But, now I realize there's a bunch of people who love traveling in Asia, or there's a bunch of people who take a year off, as, once they're out of their 20s, and just go and explore and see what's going to happen.
Yes, yes. And you know what? I think like the big thing too, man, is like when I talk about this, like I feel like just tingles in my shoulders and my body. I have a huge smile on my face. I'm like just ecstatic about this potential like experience that we're all going to get to share together, and just the fun stuff we get to make. Like I have so many ideas. The creativity is on fire right now, and I get to dive into some worlds too. Like I get to dive into doing some yoga and like trying to like learn some of that, and I don't know, just like being outside. Like I don't know,
it's huge.
I was just telling her the other day, I was just like, oh, I could do like a little like stupid comic like every day, just one panel of like that day's experience, and at the end of the trip, like that's another little thing that I could put out. So there's just like all these little crazy ideas that are coming together, how to make the book even just like interactive and fun. And honestly, like I'm really excited about doing like the video work and editing and just like sleeping with like on my dog outside, and I don't know, like just being so immersed in life, and that to me is what's important. Is you go for an extreme, and then you can go for a different extreme. It's just about experiencing stuff, and it could be a total disaster, but I don't know, like it feels right now, so that's where I go.
All right, last question. What kind of car are you guys going to take on your trip? Because obviously I feel like some kind of a van, camper van, sleeper van would be the best, or a motorhome would probably be the best. But that's too much. That's overkill. I feel like this is a trip that is not about comfort and luxury.
No. We got my 1998 Subaru Legacy 4-door. It's all-wheel drive, has some rust holes, and it's red, which is her favorite color. So that's what we're rolling with.
All right, I got to get a picture of this so we can put it with the show notes, which we will have over at pencilkings.com/podcast, as always. And Derek, where's the best place to find you these days? Still Instagram?
Yeah,
or?
Instagram, but I'm going to Vermont first before I go to Cali. So I'm going to spend some time there doing some website work. So possibly DerekRodenbeck.com or herventure.hisventure.com. We'll see. I'll shoot you a message.
All right, I will help you get DerekRodenbeck.com up. It won't be hard. Okay. We'll make it happen. So we'll throw that out by the time this podcast is released. DerekRodenbeck.com will be real.
Yes.
And if you just like going over and getting the show notes and you want to see that flashy red car, you can go over to where we're at pencilkings.com/podcast. Thanks as always. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't know if it's red from the paint anymore or just red from the rust, but it works though.
All right. Well, thanks again, Derek, and I look forward to hearing the update of this. We might not be able to get you on the show for a while if you're kind of out in the wilderness, but that'll be awesome to hear at the end the recap of this journey.
Actually, we are investing in unlimited internet for the car, so it's going to be like this mobile internet station. So I will, because I got to upload videos and stuff. So yeah, man. So we can still do shows.
Awesome.
Scope demands patience, skill, years of practice.
You talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.